What's going on, everybody? Once again, we're back for another Vicktory Life Legacy Spotlight. I'm your host, owner and founder of Vicktory Life, Dwight Vick. And today, ladies and gentlemen, I got one of my coaches I played for, one of the best coaches in Virginia Tech football history. He's been everywhere. He taught me so much about how to identify the mic, my footsteps. He just coached some legendary quarterbacks in Blacksburg. None other than Coach Rickey Bustle. How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing great, and I appreciate you having me on. I've seen some of your podcasts, and you do a great job with them.
Thank you, man. I feel like it's so weird. I'm a grown man. I still get nervous when I got people like you on and Steiny and Beamer and Bud. You guys are like my father figures, and I have a father who's still alive. God bless him. But you guys taught us so much during that. It was a formative time in my life, man. And tonight, as we record this episode, I want to give you your flowers, and I speak for a lot of your players, man. You were great to play for. But before we talk about those great and important years in Blacksburg, you are a great football mind, but many people that know the game understand that you just don't wake up and become that. I've never got a chance to ask you some of these questions, but when did it all start for you and got you in this business? Because this is a tough business, but once you get it right, it can
Sure.
be very rewarding. But what got you into this business?
Well, it was something that I knew, like that I always wanted to do. And back when I was a graduate assistant at Clemson, I knew that when I was in school there that I wanted to coach, and I wanted to, I thought I wanted to be a high school coach. I happened to play for a great football coach. You may have heard of him, John McKissick at Somerville High School, who's the winningest coach ever in high school football. And as I was a GA for a couple of years, I kind of decided, I said, I think I want to coach college. So he actually offered me a job, back home and to do a great program. And I turned him down because by that time I knew I liked the college atmosphere. I thought, I think I had a great rapport with our players, even though I was, some of them, I wasn't much older than. When you're a GA, you got guys you played with. And, I think I treated them the right way at that time, but I knew then I wanted to be a college football coach.
Hmm. Yeah. When did you did you play? Like, I know you as Coach Bustle, man, but like, did you play? Like, were you nice? Like, what did you play ball growing up?
Well, yeah. It's funny. My dad was a baseball guy, and I was pretty good in baseball, and so and he played a little pro baseball, so that's kind of where he was pushing me. And I would ask him about every year, can I play football? Can I play football? No, you want baseball, whatever. Well, I think I nagged him enough that finally my junior year was the first time I played, and I was a wide receiver at Somerville High School, and had a really good year. And our team had a really good year, but I was also the backup quarterback. So the senior that played that year left, and I was the quarterback the next year. So, I didn't play like a lot of you guys did in the young football, and like they do now, a lot of these travel teams and
Yeah.
different all these teams they have now. And of course, that wasn't quite as big, but back when I was in school, you had C teams, B teams, and that's kind of what they called them. But that was your fifth, sixth grade kind of thing. And so I didn't get to go through any of that, because I was trying to play baseball all the time, and other than and we were in a state where it didn't get too cold too often, so you were always out there trying to do something baseball wise. But I'd play in the backyard. I had a principal that lived next door to me that was an old quarterback in college and went to a little small school, but he threw me 1 million passes, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. I thought, especially like I said, kept nagging my dad. Mom was kind of on the fence, but I kept nagging. He let me play. So, that's kind of how I got started with it. And of course, I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to Clemson and went there as a quarterback. And you laugh at this, but we had a coaching change my freshman year. So most of the coaches from the Citadel which is where I grew up,
Yeah.
and they recruited me there when I was in high school. All of those guys came up, so they had me at quarterback. And first time I couldn't see over the offensive line. That's the honest truth. I could not see over the offensive line, and we get in a scrimmage, and our first scrimmage, and first time I dropped back, I couldn't see nobody. I pulled it down, ran through there, went about 30 yards with it, and quarterback.
Hey,
Hey, the quarterback coach came back there and said, "Look," he said, "that's a nice run, but you didn't see them two guys wide open down there." I said, "No, I couldn't see nobody." So it wasn't about a couple more days in spring practice. They moved me back to wide receiver. So that's where I ended up, playing for 4 years.
you were ahead of your time. You took off. You
I
took
took
off and you
off.
made it happen.
Let me tell you
Yeah.
something. Them was the biggest son of guns I'd ever seen up that close when I dropped back that first day of the scrimmage, and they was coming after me. We had guys up
Maybe
your size, and like I said, I couldn't see between nobody.
you were ahead of your time, coach, because you later, that miracle in Morgantown, Mike credits you for telling him to fake like you're gonna slide and take off. You told him that.
Well, I
And
appreciate Mike saying that because I don't know if I was that smart. I don't remember.
well, maybe that was you foreshadowed it when you took off, man, when you were playing ball.
It
You had
might
that
have
long
been.
run.
Well, I know this. I was happy to move outside because I could see most everybody, and I was awaiting the big boys in the front, so
No doubt.
they wasn't coming after me.
No, no doubt. Coach, you mentioned your family. You mentioned your mom and dad. As I get older, my son graduated a couple of nights ago. I'm a family man. Being around you and the coaches at Tech, I
Right.
feel like all you guys were family men, and you don't get to where you're at as a successful coach without the upbringing you have, man. Just spend a little moment just talking about your childhood, just not even football, but just being raised, your mother and father and your
Yeah.
family, what they mean to you.
Well, one was a nurse. My mother, she was a nurse that thought she was a doctor, but she was a nurse and a really good one. And my dad was, he had, when he graduated from high school, he went right to play pro ball. He didn't get a college degree, nothing else. So he had numerous kinds of jobs, and he's from Statesville, North Carolina, one of the furniture factories of the world is right in all that area. But so he was a big furniture guy, and he worked in that business for a long time. He was actually a policeman one time
Wow.
for a little while, but he went back to the furniture business, then ended up owning his own furniture store, and then they asked him at what would be called now, I think Charleston Southern. It used to be Baptist College at that time. If he'd come coach their baseball, because he was always involved in Little League, no
Hmm.
matter what he was doing, he was always. And he coached me a few times. There were some times that I was on another team, and that was good for me. I was good for him probably too. And but he was always involved, and he actually helped build a little league field, which is still used, and his name was on that field. And so, but football, he had no clue about football. Plus, he was a left-handed pitcher, so he threw the
Hmm.
ball funny. Them left-handers are always kind of kooky. I had one there at Tech for a while that was kind of kooky, but so yeah. But they were very, they let us play sports. They thought it was good. It kept us out of streets and that type of thing. And back then too, we there was no video to go in and play. There was nothing to keep us inside. So, and I lucked out. I lived in a neighborhood where there was probably 8 or 9 guys my age, kind of spread. And we'd have ball games, and because my yard was kind of the biggest in the back, and we
Hmm.
had football, baseball, half rubber balls, whatever. So they knew the parents and all knew where we were, but they were strict on me from the standpoint of doing the right thing, and a lot of times when you're young, you don't appreciate it till later, you
Yeah.
know. But that was, I think, something that, my dad got along. All of a sudden he started coaching college kids, you know, and they loved him to death.
Hmm.
I think he coached there for about 10 years and retired. And boy, I heard stories over those years and still do to some guys that I touch on Facebook or something else. They always bring up my dad. They loved him to death. And I
Hmm.
thought, I think I learned a lot from him about handling kids, young kids. Even when Lily, he wasn't a guy, he would get excited about things, and sometimes he'd get more excited than we did, but he had a way of getting on us and not making us too pouty. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
No. Just
yeah,
like you said, I got after you a couple of times, but I
yeah,
think
yeah.
I think you knew I loved you the whole time, and I don't know that you ever walked off the field mad at me, but you might have a spur of the moment.
Nah, nah, I never did. I mean, I knew you. Listen, it's so funny, man. You guys were on us, but it was one of those things where you wanted us to be great, man. That's why you're on this legacy spotlight now. That's why we won games. It was tough
Yeah,
love at times, but it was also encouragement. It was teaching technique, and that's why again, not only did we win games, but we created a legacy of expectations now that
no
Tech
doubt.
is still trying to get back to and live up to.
Yeah.
And
But
it's so funny.
you got to remember this. You guys were special young men at that time. Y'all were coachable, and and the thing that I say to this day, and I've been saying it for years to these kids, when you get after them a little bit, that you want to listen to the message, not the tone.
Mm,
You know what I'm saying? No,
yep,
listen to the message. I want you to want it more than I want it for you.
yeah,
And you tell, and I use it all the time and always have for so many years. And I don't know if I heard that somewhere or I started saying it. I don't know, but that's the thing, because so many kids, especially even to nowadays, but even back when if you handle them the wrong way, it'd turn you off.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and and that's the thing. Even I mean, I'm 70 years old, getting ready to be 71, and I'm helping coaching high school ball now. So, and I love the young men. And it's amazing how many guys hit me on Facebook and different things and phone and call. I got a list on my phone from the schools that I've been at. Obviously, I was at Tech longer than any place, so there's a lot
Hmm.
of guys that do that, and it's always funny. They'll say, "Well, what are you doing now?" And I said, "Well, I play golf in the AM, coach a little ball in the PM, and my wife working full time." So I said, that's a good deal. So, but you guys were people don't understand. We didn't have that star back then. There were some guys that developed,
Yes,
into really good players, but
yeah,
y'all took what we gave you, and I can say that for the nucleus of that football team, and even wider than that.
yeah,
I think you guys knew that we cared about you, and what we were trying to do is to get you to do the right things, and as we did that, we got to be a lot better football team. And there's still, there wasn't really, like I said, a star necessarily out there, and all this stuff about 4 stars and 3 stars, five, all that stuff that didn't come to Virginia Tech at that time. And
mm,
it took guys like you and all them guys, because all you guys that played up front, man, y'all were tight. All you
we,
guys were tight up there.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's what we wanted for our football team. And that's what I wanted, particularly on offense. I didn't have to deal too much with the attitudes, like you're doing now when you're paying guys money to come play and doing all them
hmm,
things. I mean, and you got guys that'll leave you in a minute. You
yeah,
know, I think you guys built such a great foundation at Virginia Tech to springboard the way we went on to play.
yeah. Well, let's talk about that, man. That's a great segue into Virginia Tech, coach, because you know, I think now Fry's he's cut from that cloth. He was there and saw how it was built. But before that, we already know who was there. And Tech football lost its way. And you made no, you didn't hide from the fact. We're friends on Facebook, and
Mhm.
you've always been a straight shooter and outspoken coach, which I respect immensely. And you mentioned that blueprint, that blue collar mindset. What led you to Tech? I don't know this. Again, I played for you, but what led you to Tech? Because each coach I've talked to on a personal level, now that I'm a grown adult and we talk, Bud has his story. Steiny has his story. Coach Wiles has his story.
Certainly.
Almation has his story. What led, Coach Bustle there?
Well, I was actually coaching at Louisiana Monroe at the time, and I
Hmm.
was fortunate. I had two good quarterbacks there that played in the league. Stan Humphries. I don't know if you would remember him, but he was
Yeah,
with
Stan
them.
Humphries, man, played for the Chargers.
Yep, and he also played. I think didn't he play there in Washington for a little bit, or did?
Yes, yeah, he
Yeah, I
was
thought
in
he
with the
did.
Washington.
And then also had Bubby Brister,
Yes,
who played
Steelers.
Steelers. Yep, had those two guys, and I knew Coach Bing. Okay, I knew him. I'd actually coached when I coached in that USFL, the first original USFL. They sold our franchise after the first year and everything. Well, I went packed up. My wife and I packed up everything we had. Still couldn't fill up a U-Haul, but we drove that thing from Phoenix, Arizona to Charleston, South Carolina. And I had a roommate that was on Coach Beamer's staff at Murray State. And Coach O'Kane, I don't know if you know, he coached there at
Coach
Tech for a
O'Kane,
little
Coach
bit.
Mike O'Kane.
Yeah.
Yep. Mhm.
Mike and I were roommates at Clemson. But anyway, um, so Mike calls me. I'll never forget. Mike called me and said, we want to work on our passing game a little bit. Would you, you're not doing nothing, which I wasn't. Would you come up for spring practice? And I did that. So, and Coach Beamer was a head football coach, and so and I stayed there at Mike's house and everything. So I went with him through all spring, and got a call during spring practice about a job at Louisiana Monroe. So right there in the spring, instead of flying home, I flew to Louisiana and ended up coaching there. So I was there 3 years, and like I said, I had a couple because both Bubby and Stan transferred in to Monroe. We
Mm,
didn't recruit them; they had
okay,
transferred.
gotcha.
Um, um, so, and then when Coach got the tech job, he called me.
Wow.
And so I went up and talked to him. We stayed there at the old Red Lion. You remember the old Red
Red Lion, yeah.
Lion? We stayed there at the old Red Lion. And of course, he and I looked at film, video and stuff. And I'll tell you a story you don't know probably. Just he and I, because I think everybody else that he had it hired at the time were out recruiting. We're sitting there, and I don't remember Coach Beamer's secretary at that time. It wasn't this. Anyway, she comes to the door there where he and I were looking at video, and we were talking about our, philosophy, and I was doing most talking, but she says, uh, Mike Gentry's on the phone.
Mm,
And he said, well, and he told me, he said, I've been waiting to talk to him. So he said, if you give me a few minutes. So I sat there. And it wasn't long. He comes back and he said, you don't have to know Mike Gentry, do you? I said, I sure do, because I was at East Carolina with him.
yeah.
And I said, Coach, if you can hire him, you need to hire him. That's all I can tell you.
Wow.
And he asked me a couple of questions and I answered them so forth. But that was the last thing I said to him. I said, I was with Mike for 3 years over there. And I know, Mike Gentry. So
Yes, I do.
you know what I was trying to tell him. And that's the last thing I said, so we could get back looking at videos. If you have a chance to hire Mike, hire him. And
Yeah.
sure enough, of course, Coach offered me the job, and I went back. And so that's how I got to Virginia Tech, knowing Coach Beam and
Yeah.
knowing I've been coaching quarterbacks and that type of thing. And I helped with the quarterback at Murray State some and everything. So he kind of knew about my coaching a little bit. But that's how we
Yeah.
got, yeah.
And it's crazy because we're gonna get into your quarterbacks, so you coach. You mentioned Stan Humphries, but we're gonna get into that because I have that on my notes right here. I keep notes when I have guests on. And when I was slightly preparing, I know you, but I don't know everything about you. I was like, man, Coach Bustle has coached some ballers. So we're gonna get into that, but because I still remember some of the terms like jacks in the goal line. I remember
Oh, yeah.
flush, four
Yeah.
wides. I remember
Yeah.
all of that stuff.
I'm still using that.
Oh,
And
really?
I've I put it in at probably 4 high schools.
Yep.
That was that. And even the one I'm over here, when I put that in, the same stuff, flush, tens, jacks.
Tens, jacks. Hey,
Yep.
I remember it all, man. I remember, look,
Yep.
I remember we would the offense was so nice. Bonnie, Clyde, Edith,
Yep.
Archie.
Yep.
It was so fun.
Billy in a
Because you
hand.
gotta
Billy in a hand.
Billy and Ann, and it was so cool. But here's the thing: George and we with George and
Louis.
Wheezy,
Yeah,
Louise,
Louis. Yeah.
Louise. So here's the thing:
Fred, hey,
you,
Fred and Will. Don't forget Fred.
Fred and Will, yeah. I know people listening to this when they watch this gonna be like, "What are they talking about?" But that's just some of the terms in the offense. But here's the crazy thing about it: I was recruited. I arrived in '94, redshirted. You were there when it all started. Like
Right.
you were there when that run got going. And we're gonna talk about your quarterbacks, but you guys had a a historic, which I think some of the records just recently got broken, which shows you during that time you were there with Maurice and you guys got the bowl game streak going. Then you left. I came in and we had Gary Tranquil.
Yeah.
His offense was extremely complex. He came from NFL, and I remember being a red shirt, and the playbook was this thick, and I was like, man, I'm never going to play because it was so many different. It was so hard because he was there, Almation, and then you return,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, I was like, okay, even though it was the same principles, it was user friendly,
Yeah.
and we
Right.
had
Right.
so
Right.
much fun. I mean, and just to talk about your offense, the screen game,
Yeah.
Dallas, and I forgot the other one,
Texas.
Texas, the
Yeah.
screen
Florida.
game,
Florida.
Florida,
Florida. Miami.
Florida and Miami, the
Yeah.
screen game. You use
Yeah.
the fullbacks. You were
Yeah.
able to get guys like Danny Edwards and Brian Edmonds and all those guys the ball, Coombs, and everybody like that. The running game, it
Jared
was
Ferguson.
Jared Ferguson. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
you respectfully, you did a marvelous job of whoever was on the field, minus the offensive lineman, was a
Right.
threat. Was a threat. The tight ends, the
Yeah.
running backs, the receivers, all four or 21 personnel. Again, I'm just because we can talk about it now. Where did that come from? Was it like, were you one of those guys when you were in your hotel room or your house, you were just kind of like looking it up, drawing up stuff? Or did you have that natural gift that OCs have? Because some offensive coordinators just have a natural gift of seeing it.
It was, when I went away that year, we ran I'm not going to say similar offense, but again, I was experiencing another offense, even though I put in a lot of our stuff, when I was at South Carolina. And we called it differently, but it was basically the same thing. But, you're always, at least I was always, man, drawing stuff and trust me, football coaches are the biggest stealers there are in the world. If I saw something good somewhere, I was going to steal it. If I saw
Yeah.
something good,
Mm-hmm.
but I think, and it's not something that just popped up. It was coming because if you before you got there, we hadn't had an offensive coordinator. Me and Steve Marshall. I don't know if you remember Steve.
I know, coach. I know, coach. Yep.
Okay, well we're getting ready to see them here in a couple of weeks. We've been friends with him forever.
Yeah.
But when I came back, Steve was gone, and we just, I knew what I wanted to do, and I wanted it to be easy to do, to run, but I wanted everybody on the field to be a threat somewhere. I don't care if a guy, a fullback, you knew was going to get 4 yards every time. Now we had guys to do that, but we also had guys that could break something there and make it longer. And you ever, and that's the kind of guys we recruited. You know,
Yeah.
uh, and again, we weren't playing with freshmen. I mean, they were redshirting pretty much. So
Yep.
we were developing kids that just were tough, wanted to play football. Um, but it was just kind of the offense that I liked, and the coach made me the coordinator again because he called me about coming back from South Carolina, and I was
Mm-hmm.
coordinator before I left. Um, And I tell you, can I tell you a quick story about that
You
too?
sure can. It's your legacy spotlight,
All
coach.
right, all right, no. And my son, I can't remember how old Brad was, but all he knew, he asked me one time, what are those, that on your TV screen on Saturday? Them teams, the scores, and they got a number by 'em,
Hmm.
like number
Hmm.
one, number five, number
Yep.
20. He said, he asked, what are those numbers for? I said, that means that they've done really well and, they're ranked. They're ranked number 22. They're ranked whatever
Hmm.
it is. Well, that year before I left, the year that I left was we had that good year, and I think that's where we went to the bowl,
Independence Bowl.
the Independence of Louisiana. And I was worried about telling, because finally, every time we'd win, and we won, I don't know, 7, 8 games that year, got us in there.
No, y'all won nine. Y'all won nine.
Now,
Y'all won
what
nine
was
and
that? What it
three.
was?
Nine and
Anyway,
three.
Brad would ask me every week, "Are we ranked yet?" He didn't care. He didn't care. Are we ranked yet? And I'd say, "No, not yet." Then all of a sudden we got to whatever it was, 20 or 19, whatever it was. So he was so proud of that, and he kept up with that, and we stayed ranked, the rest of the season. So I go in there to tell him that I'm going to take the job at South Carolina, and South Carolina hadn't had a good couple of years. They weren't very good,
Mm.
and I sit down and because I was worried about telling him because he was old enough to, just break down or whatever. And I didn't know how he was going to react. So I said, Brad, I've decided to take another job.
Mm.
And he goes, like, where are we going? Where is it? I said, University of South Carolina. He looked at me and goes, are they ranked? I said, that's all he cared about. I said, no, not yet. But I said, hopefully we'll get ranked. But I was all worried about him maybe crying or being mad, being upset. He looked me dead now because he'd worked on that ranking all season long. And he just looked at me and said, are they ranked? I'm like, where did that come from? But I knew. But anyway, but yeah, but we were, I was always tinkering with it some, and I always thought it was easy for you guys, even if we made a change, it wasn't going to be something crazy. Once y'all got a,
Hmm.
because I knew when I brought them words and all back, y'all were going to think I was nuts. But
I like that.
but you remember we were going no huddle all the time then.
Yes,
And
yes.
so calling things at the line, I had to have a way to, and we were probably a little ahead of our time, or a little ahead of other
Hmm.
people. A lot of
Hmm.
people, and we were, calling those names like say George and Louise and Fred and Wilma and all those things. Um, and it really worked really well for us. I wish I'd have had a couple of things I know now that I wish I'd have known it back then. This no huddle stuff. But um, so that's kind of where we came with it, and we played a bunch of teams that were not no huddle.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah.
said, we were right there, maybe ahead, maybe right there at the beginning of where teams were starting to look at that. And you guys had
Hmm.
no problem with it. You linemen, I figured loved it because you ain't got to get your butt back in the huddle and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
Y'all can
yeah.
stand there and rest and all that stuff. I just got to get receivers moved around the right place. But no, you guys did not question anything. Because I mean, I know I can tell you right. I remember the offensive meeting we had because I told you there were going to be changes, and the way we were going to do things. And I have no idea what y'all thought when you went out. I felt like you trusted me. You
Oh, we
know,
did. We did.
and as we put it in, because I'm a guy that when you look at installs, I'm gonna put it in slowly because I'd rather not have to step backwards somewhere. I'd have an open day where we don't add nothing. And I'm still that way to this day, and it drives me nuts. But these coaches that want to get all this stuff in and kind of like throwing mud on the wall and see what sticks, because you got to go back and teach all this other stuff. So, I think, and it's always easier to teach the passing game a little bit, as far as route wise, than it was the running game. So I always wanted to make sure we weren't overloaded. You guys, like I said, you didn't question. We came out there and we was going to run Tarzan and Jane, or the outside zones or whatever we were tosses and stuff. And you did. you just went to work. You guys worked, man. I think
Yeah,
you know
we
you
did.
trusted us.
We
You
did.
trusted us, and I truly believe, and I always have that. When you care about young people and they know you do, you'll get their best effort.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? I
I
mean,
I
and I,
agree.
yeah, I've been around coaches that just were different. They just different. And I didn't see, and sometimes, you know, I would even go talk to their players, be able to put an arm around them sometimes. But it's not everybody that does that stuff. And, I always felt like that we had a staff at Tech that would, that nobody left, for the longest time. Nobody left, and it was great working for Coach Beamer. Um, but like I said, I think, you guys was an inspiration to me and to us because y'all just did what we asked you to do.
Well, I think, thank you, Coach, but I want to say something to you in your legacy spotlight that I don't think no one or anyone has told you. And this is the perfect platform with my audience and the following I have to say this to you is I think you were critical in helping Virginia Tech develop an identity. And fill me on this for a second. We know about the lunch pail, which has become an iconic symbol in college football.
Yeah.
We know about Beamer ball, with special teams becoming an emphasis on making game-winning plays. But what you did for Virginia Tech football coach Bustle was you gave us an identity that lasted forever, which is what got lost when the game changed in the modern day. As other programs evolve, Virginia Tech during the post-Beamer era, I'm not including Pride,
Right.
lost its way. One day, one game we were spread, one game we were speed option, one game we were no huddle, one game we were ball control. But with you, every game, and I'm speaking for Sharon Stiff, Antonio Freeman, Maurice DeShazo, Haygood, Malone, Connolly, Pine, we knew what we were supposed to do.
Yeah.
And we were like, we dare y'all to stop it. And even after we
Yeah.
left, when Mike and Andre Davis came and KJ and all the guys that came, that blueprint was there.
Yeah.
And Beamer was like, I'm going to run this blueprint. So it was the perfect storm. It was Bud Foster and his iconic lunch pail.
Yeah.
We're going to come to work. And then I don't have it with me. I forgot I'm getting old, coach. I normally have my chains and
Yeah. I still
I
have
got
one.
mine. Michael Stewie, I interviewed him and his son and his wife at the spring game.
Right. Right.
And he was like, man, you still got yours? He still has his. We still have our links.
Yeah.
So my point being is, even after Antonio Freeman, Jermaine Holmes, and Brian Steele and Cornelius White left, Andre Davis, Rickey Hall, Angelo Harrison followed suit.
Sure.
And that's what Tech is need to get back to is the iconic identity that we had. I remember one thing, again, you were probably somewhere game planning and coaching. I was watching the old post-game college game day, and it was Mark May and Lou Holtz. And Lou Holtz said, I don't know what I'm watching. You were long gone. It was a whole new, Virginia Tech used to drive that ball down your throat, play action, go deep. I don't know what I'm watching. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
So I just
No.
want
Yeah.
to make sure you know that because you talk about how close we were, and we were close. All of us are still brothers now.
Sure.
I think, and I want you to know this. I think we mirrored. No, not I think. I know we mirrored what you guys did. I was recently with Coach Foster, and I spoke on his behalf to honor him and his Lunch Pail Foundation up here in Northern Virginia, where I live. And I said to him, to the people there up in Alexandria, I thought it was pretty cool how, as a 18-year-old in my formative years, where I saw you, Steiny, Coach Grimes, Kavanaugh, and Coach Ball, and all you guys, and Wiles and Foster, the personalities, how y'all all were like a mute. Y'all were all different. Ball
Yeah.
Foster was all intense. You were this way. You had your moments of intensity, but then you would crack a joke and roast somebody real quick. Spring was like that cool uncle. Beamer was the dad on top of the tower. So one thing I thought Beamer did, which you did as well, coach, is Beamer allowed you guys to be yourself and then you allow Antonio Freeman to be himself.
Yeah.
You allow Jim Pond to be himself. And I think that was just a perfect storm and why we won so many games. Now, with that being said, Coach, I wanted before I do my name game, because we got to dive into your quarterback legacy. When you talk about that 93 year, 95 and 93, and there are other years, the 2014, that's long
Yeah.
after me, you were gone. But the 95 and 93 teams to me are huge because 93 set the tone, but 95 was huge. We beat Miami for the first time in the Sugar Bowl and we beat Texas. We win 10
Yeah.
games. But in 93, there are a couple of games I think about. I think about, I'm going to go season to season, 93 first, then 95. You can speak on both of them. 93, you guys start scoring like crazy. Touchdown time, yeah, what you guys beat Pittsburgh. You damn near scored 80 points. You scored 63 points.
Yeah.
I mean,
63.
I'm
Yeah.
63 points. And then you guys just are winning games. You play Miami tough, but all of a sudden, even though you lost that game, you kind of put them on notice, right? So at the end of the day, when you think about that 93 team with the offense, a record-setting historic offense,
Yeah.
the UVA game is what I'm talking about because you guys at the time that 93 season, in my humble opinion, even though UVA beat Tech in 94, the 93 team, you go down to UVA and you beat a really good UVA team
Yeah.
at UVA. What do you remember about that season? And did you know going in that look, we can make it, we can really have a special offense, or did it just happen throughout the season?
No, I think it was one of those things. We had the right people. I mean, from coaching staff, which always kind of where it starts to you guys, but we had the right people playing quarterback, playing, the wide receivers. It was just, and that can sometimes go either way. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
you lose a couple things, and all of a sudden, but we didn't do that. We kind of snowballed, and I think you guys started rising to the level of play that we've been striving for, and we sit there and who do we play? Indiana?
Indiana.
No.
Indiana.
We're playing somebody out of a big conference like that.
Big
And
Ten.
and I look at them on video and they got, them kind of long guys and guys that can move around and stuff. And, I was very confident to play Indiana. But I said, this is going to be tough. This is going to be tough. And we go out there and play our tails off, and beat them like a drum. And that was crazy. But this just a culmination because that was a big year for us, even as coaches, because, there was a lot of talk about Coach Beamer not being there,
Yeah.
the year before.
2-8-1.
Yes. And so we knew, and we actually thought maybe that year it may happen, but it didn't. But we knew as coaches, I mean, we've been in the business, so, we knew that we needed to win, put it that way, but it never felt that way. Coaching you guys was, if I would use the word easy, that wouldn't be the right one. But like I said, you guys would just do and finally we saw something coming together. And the thing in a true year's time, we truly got better every week almost. Even when we lost the
Mhm.
game, we still playing.
Yep.
And we were. It was so exciting to go to that bowl game.
Yeah.
I mean, just for all of us. We've
Yeah.
been trying so hard, and it was just unbelievable. And of course, nobody knew how many people we were going to bring to games like we did when all that started happening. Well, got somebody looking at me. But it was just a year that we just I thought we could have. I didn't know how many games we'd win, but I thought we could. We just had the pieces. Some people grew up. A lot of guys grew up by that time, somewhat, and and y'all didn't care who got the credit. It didn't matter to you guys. We scored some points pretty well. Um, and it was just that again, I give more credit to our coaches that cared about you guys and had been pushing you for several years, and y'all just wasn't no lip back, wasn't no talk back.
No.
You might whatever, because I can tell you a story about Antonio Freeman too. Okay, 'Cause- if you remind me, I'll tell you. But we had the pieces. We had the pieces, and it was just so much.
Well,
So
you said we didn't talk back. I think we respect. I know we respected y'all, but y'all had Coach Mike Gentry and Coach Witten behind y'all. If you ever, if we ever got our line, but at the same time, man, Coach, again, I can speak for so many guys, man. Like we were human, we were young, but we kind of figured out we were part of something bigger than us and something special. Most importantly, I think the credibility you guys earned is that it was working.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
it wasn't like, I remember one time you laid me out something awful. My red shirt sophomore, junior year, red shirt junior year. We were running, I think it was Dallas or Miami. You told me in the huddle, we in practice in Lane Stadium. You said, Vic, go down that line flat. Because I had to kick out Corey Moore, the end.
yeah, yeah,
And I must have been tired, loafing. I went, but I didn't go flat. I kind of went around.
yeah.
And I don't know if it was Marcus Park, whoever. I don't know who the back was. They got blown up. And you took that little balled up piece of paper and banged me on the helmet. I said flat, damn it. And I was like, I got you, coach. I got you. You were like, listen to me. And but I mean, again, I don't even remember feeling bad about myself. I remember like, honestly, he's right. Because if I go flat, I kick Corey Moore out.
Yeah,
And the fullback, I don't know who it was, goes up. And
yeah,
we're in practice. But either way, I think that's the whole point is that you can talk to Ty Washington, Derek Smith, Burke. It doesn't matter what era, we knew it worked. And now I want to go back to one season though, the 95 season was even bigger because 93, we went to the Independence Bowl, 94, finished second in the Big East, played Tennessee in the Gator Bowl, took a step back against UVA. They came in there. We had a bunch of turnovers, but finished second in the conference, earned a bigger bowl bid to the Gator Bowl. But then 95, we have a rough start. We go 0-2. And it's bad. We a bad, tough loss to Boston College, a team we lost 20 to
yeah,
14
yeah.
on Thursday night, sold out crowd. But then we have Cincinnati at home in the rain. And I think it's still raining. And we
Oh,
lose 16
Cincinnati,
to
yeah, 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 yeah.
16 to nothing. And all of a sudden, we got the Miami Hurricanes, the U team we never beat in school history. Ray Lewis, they're ranked. As Brad says, they're ranked.
Yeah.
And we win the game. Lauren Johnson bats the ball down. Next thing you know, coach, we win 10 straight.
Yeah.
Um, to me, that changed the trajectory of the program forever.
I agree with you. I agree with
Now,
you. Because I
do,
mean, when we
what do you
lost,
remember?
when we lost to Cincinnati, that was tough.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, Boston College, I put a lot of blame on myself for that game because I did not call. I remember that because you have a few of them that stand out. It's not always the great win. But that was my first time back calling plays at Tech because I'd called them at South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a different vibe, different flow, and I knew I just don't. I never felt like I called a great game there. I know we had chances and all that stuff, but it was just we had just put in shallow crosses and doing some things and that was a tough loss and uh, but I remember that. But then to turn around and lose in Cincinnati, whew, that was we. I don't know if we'd gotten over the other loss, but what a great year and like I said, but you guys never wavered though. As a coaching staff, we'd go in and meet. We didn't argue about things. We didn't differ on anything else. We saw things we need to do better, and and that's probably honestly during that, like I said, 93 and 94 time in there, and then I went away for a year. That was a growing curve for me right in there. Looking at some things differently offensively at South Carolina and coming back. and thinking the first game, some of these things were going to be good. And I just didn't feel like I did a good job that game, even though we might have had some
Mm.
chances. But, I kind of settled down after that or after them 2 games. And again, and you guys, like I said, you guys were unbelievable. There wasn't no bitching, moaning, or,
You okay? You all right?
yeah, uh, I'm trying to be on as good behavior as I can.
Nah, nah. It's all good. It's your legacy spotlight.
But
You said way worse.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You don't have to say that out loud, okay? But the first time my son heard me say that, I blamed it on JB Grimes. I dropped a big bomb, and we was in a crowd. I was talking to y'all about a practice, and I
Yeah,
dropped a big one. And Brad could not. He was young. He was young. He's out
yeah.
there with all them kids, and he said something about me. So I said, "That wasn't me. That was Coach Grimes." To this day, I never told him the difference. But again, and you brought it up a while ago about, and you talked about the lunch pail and all, but those little changes that we made, them
Yeah.
links. I still got. I don't have them right here in front of me, but I still have mine. Every once in a while, in an email, I'll get a picture of somebody's. I've got a
Mm-hmm.
picture of mine that's got like 3 or 4 or 5 on it. But
Mm-hmm.
I always kept those because they meant something to me. I didn't ever label them or anything like that because really it was just about always being together,
Yes.
you know. And
Yes.
you probably remember my little routine before we'd go play and leave the motel over there. Everybody get their link out, right?
Yep.
Everybody get their
Yeah.
link out. I made everybody shut their eyes,
Yep. I remember.
and I just talk a little bit. And it all wasn't football all the time, but it was just
Yeah.
and y'all, I can tell over the years, a lot of guys still remember the link and have a link or two, because I've just seen it. Like I said, I get pictures of them. So
Mm-hmm.
that was a really, I think, neat thing we did,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we had something that was as big to us as the lunch pails and everything else. That was something that we did special, and
Yeah.
we knew we knew the story of the weakest link and all that kind of stuff. And I don't think any of y'all wanted to be that link,
Nah.
you know.
No. No.
And
No.
because you guys were at the point that you know when you play good and when you play bad. You were old enough to realize that, and that's what like I said, we talked. I know about all kinds of things, but that was kind of our little routine before we go get on that bus.
I love it. And you
Yeah,
were tough, man. I remember the Sugar Bowl, man. We were waiting, man, trying to get over to the stadium for walkthrough. And I'm like, man, what are we doing, man? We in the back of the bus. It's me, Haygood, TJ, Connie, the whole crew. Like, man, what's going on? Who we waiting on? And here you come with your hat and your little gray tech shorts. We said, all right, we can go now. And I was like, what happened? And then somebody said, you had to pass some kidney stones. And I
yeah,
was like,
yeah,
how tough is this dude passing? We might as well cancel practice, man. But you came up there. I said, man, Coach Bustle built different, man. I said, because to pass those stones and come out there and coach, and it was like nothing happened, man. It was such a family atmosphere. So many memories I
yeah,
have from that.
yeah.
So
When
much fun.
when
Now,
somebody hurt, we all hurt.
yes, yeah, and that's why I was one of the most special times of my life. And I do want to transition though. This is the fun
Go
part
ahead.
of our show.
All
I
right.
want to go because now we're going to get into the quarterback name game. I'm going to say the quarterback, and I just want you to go give me just what you enjoyed about coaching them, just your own thoughts. I'm not even going to tell it. You say it. But before we get into that, it's amazing to me when I take a step back. I never thought about it until we prep for this show. You coached 2 first-round quarterbacks. One of them went first overall,
What was the first pick?
and
Yeah,
yeah, and then you coached the other one. We're going to talk about here in a second. And he went in the first round, and he graduated Tech. He went 21-1 overall, won 2 conference championships when the Big East was really tough.
yeah, yeah,
And then you had another one that was a Heisman candidate going into the 93 season. were ahead of your time. So let's talk about it. I'm going to name the quarterback in order. First one, Maurice DeShazo. What comes to mind with Maurice?
And he was nuts. Maurice is crazy. I recruited him out of Bassett High School.
Yeah,
So I mean, I knew that I wanted to have a guy. First of all, I thought he was a good quarterback. That's when I was thinking about dual threat stuff.
that's why I said, hold on, coach. That's why I said you were ahead of your time.
Well,
You out there,
now
speed option and all of that.
but well, he could throw the football, no doubt.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
but he was a heck of an athlete. I watched him play basketball. I watched him,
yeah.
and I said, this guy is legit as far as being a college quarterback and a guy that can be a dual threat. And that wasn't when people were even mentioning dual threat guys.
Mm-hmm.
But he was fun to coach, and I stayed on him pretty hard all the time. He would tell you that.
You did. And
Yeah,
I remember I was being recruited that year when you guys had that historic season. And Maurice was special, man. Like you guys were running speed option with
yeah,
him in 1993, and he was juking and moving and throwing on the run. And you had Free and Be
yeah,
Still and Steve Sanders. It
yeah.
was insane, man. It was, I mean, that's what I said. I mean, you guys were doing it like that back then, where explosive offenses now about the spread zone reads, bubble
Sure,
screens.
sure.
You guys were kind of doing that with Dallas and Miami. All
Yeah.
right, next quarterback,
You remember,
Jim.
you remember you remember our
Oh,
double screen though.
yeah, the double. I remember it.
Florida,
Fake that,
Miami.
fake
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
You had you that one
That was a
to
big.
me.
That was
That
always
was
great.
the big one. That was the
Yeah.
big one. I tell you one play. Now you get me off schedule. You had a play,
I've still got cut
UVA.
ups. I've still got cut ups of that double screen on my computer that I'll put in sometimes when we're playing people that I've
Do
done.
you,
Still
do
do
you
the
remember?
same thing.
Do you remember the play you called against Texas? I don't know if Hager missed his block, whatever, but Poons got killed. Ryan Evans, Texas almost took his head off. I don't know if you remember that. I should have sent it to you when we're done in this interview. They showed it on Sports Center, even though we won the game.
Yeah,
Poons
I
got
think I do remember.
decapitated.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to throw you under the bus, Hager, when you see this. I just remember it was on your side. Maybe it was TJ. All right, coach. Next quarterback, Jim Druckenmiller.
Jim was Mr. Magoo. He was a blockhead. He was because and people don't know this. Maybe you do about Jim. He was actually at Tech in January.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, in the fall, and we had Will Fuhrer
Yeah.
that played in the league, and Will was going to be the starting quarterback, and I forget who the backup was. And we were pretty solid there, and I talked Jim into going home.
What?
Yeah, and Jim, because he wasn't there he wasn't there. He went home and came back in January, which gave him an extra year. You know what I'm
Wow.
saying?
I didn't
He,
know that.
yeah, Jim was in school and all. I mean, not in school, he was in practicing, but he wasn't going to play. And see, he was an older guy. He was at prep school, so he
Fourth
wasn't.
Union.
He wasn't like Fort Union. He wasn't like um, a freshman that you were going to have to. He was all he was a more mature guy, and
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was going to be really good. And I said, God, we talked up in the staff room. Of course, I got dubbed to go down there and talk to him. And I think it made sense for him because he wasn't going to play. And, I haven't talked to Jim in a while, but he went home, I'm going to say in August and came back in January. And the rest is history because he became a first round pick. But
Mm-hmm.
because if he had been, he'd have been a senior playing the year before. But Jim was, um, people thought I was crazy, but I still ran speed option with Jim. He was just
I was
slow.
getting ready to say that. I look back, I was playing then. I'm like, man, coach out here running speed option with drunk.
Yeah. He was just slow enough to read it right. He wasn't in no hurry. But, and we always tried to get the ball pitched with him, not
Mm-hmm.
block somebody and get
Mm-hmm.
the, and and you probably remember he made some 12, 15 yard runs. That's
Yes,
about
he
as far
did.
that's about as far as
Yes, he did.
he was gonna make it. But I mean, when he kept it, he was always in that running scene because they took the pitch and
Yep.
so I mean people still had to guard him. They weren't gonna just let
Yeah.
him do that,
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You did run it with him. It was crazy
yeah,
because he was big. And I remember that spring, man. It was him and Al Clarke, and you were kind of getting on Drunk because he was struggling with his reads and different things. And I mean, you coached us all hard.
mhm,
And you knew what all of us were supposed to be doing. But then all of a sudden, man, after that 2 game losing streak, then we caught lightning in the bottle. We had that run. I
yeah,
mean, Drunk was money, man.
yes, he
I mean,
was,
and then '96, we only had one loss up at Syracuse.
yeah,
And I mean, our offense was potent, man. Drunk, man, he had an arm. I still remember that '95 Sugar Bowl game.
yes,
They had zero coverage, and he audible and he threw that bomb to be still,
yeah.
and that opened the game up. We won, man. I mean, again, great job by you and the
Well,
coaches, man. I
he
mean,
was. I mean, he could. He was a true NFL mold at the time. I mean,
mhm.
and he was probably as strong as anybody we had on the football
He
team.
lifted with me in the line, Mike
Yeah, he
Lance, and
always
all of
lifted
them.
with the linemen, and he was a big young man, but he had a because I went down to Fork Union because Steve Marshall recruited Fork Union. I had
Hmm.
the other school, but and he wanted me to look at two guys that they had down there, and there was no question in my mind. I just liked Jim and the way he threw the football and so forth. And of course, like I said, having that extra year, made all the difference for him because it put a lot of money in his pocket. I know he
No
lost
doubt.
stuff, but he he had some money first.
Yeah,
But
man. It's crazy, man. All right. Well, next one, Al Clark,
yeah,
DC guy. He took over for Drunk, man.
yeah,
Another dual threat.
yeah,
Another guy you coached up well, man, and ran that no huddle offense well.
yeah,
Battled some injuries, but
yeah.
your thoughts on Al Clark?
Al was a solid player. He wasn't going to be a great player, but he was smart. He was football smart.
Hmm.
It wasn't just on Madden and all that stuff. He was because we didn't have a lot of Madden back then, but he was really smart, very methodical, and he was a pretty serious. I know he was a great guy with you guys, but he was kind of serious for me.
Yeah, he was.
A little bit more serious than I was sometimes, um, but he was a guy I knew we could win with. And there he was talented, and I still remember to this day. I think we were struggling with Rutgers, if I remember right, and it was about the 40ish yard line, 45, and I called something, some pass or something, and I don't know how he took off out the backside and ends up scoring in a time
Hmm.
where we were struggling some, and that kind of opened it up for us. But he's a winner. And he and I have chatted here. Now, I don't know if he's still coaching or not, but he was for a
Yeah, he
while.
was.
I don't know what he's doing now, but we used to chat a little bit on again Facebook or whatever. But he was like I said, a lot more serious guy.
Yeah, he used to tell me. I just hung out with Al, man, up at the spring game a few months ago back in April, and we were talking about, the meeting room and the quarterbacks and how he had to get there. I remember those little gray boxes. He would have like 4 or 5 of them. And he had on those Nike slides we got from one of them bowl games. He would have those little gray boxes, like 4 of them. And it'd be later, he's like, man, I gotta go over here and watch film, or I gotta, we go eat in the dining hall. He go back to meet with you. It
Yeah,
was like around this time. And I'm like, man. And he told me, man, we were talking about it. He was like, yo, Bustle, we were, it was business. Like, I mean, it was amazing. It was a life lesson for me, and from the perspective the quarterbacks really had to know a lot and do a
yeah,
lot, especially
yeah,
because you demanded a lot, which
yeah,
brings me to my last one, the GOAT, my family, Mike Vick, your Heisman candidate, the guy that took your offense to the next level. To be a first all draft pick to this day, that's my cousin. We talk and
yeah. Right.
we still talk about you. And again, I told you, I remember recently I saw when it aired. when you were on the documentary, you were
Yeah.
on there talking about Coach and Mike, and there was a clip of you. Dave Meyer was behind him, and you were like, and you did all of that. And Mike was just standing there looking at you, and he was talking about it was hard for him. And but I mean, when you coach Mike, and we all knew that he was different. He had that it factor. The whole thing you talked about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But just what was it like to coach him? And you were critical because if you don't coach him right, despite his immense God-given ability, he might not become. I'm not saying you made him like Vic, but I mean you put him in a situation because you don't know this. I'm gonna share a story with you. Obviously, I recruited him. I was his host, and I was recruiting him and
Right.
talking to him, plus his family. I told him, and I have the article to prove this. I said, "Listen, you come here, man. In Bustle's offense, you will take us to a national championship, and you could possibly be up for the Heisman." This is actually I have the article still saved. And then you get him. It's not magic at first, but that JMU game, and the next thing you know, boom. So when you hear Mike Vick and you think about it, an iconic figure to this day, you were after his coach in high school, Tommy Reaman, you took
Right.
him.
Right.
How was it?
He was fun to coach, not from the standpoint of him being such a great player, and he was. Mike enjoyed life a little bit. He always had a great smile on his face, and Mike had a camp over here in Atlanta few years ago, and he called me, and I went over and worked it with him. And
Wow.
I didn't do no work. He and I just sat there and talked the whole 3 hours. But I got talking, and I talked to him at Christmas about an hour. Now
Yeah.
we talk every year and talk a couple of times, but he was just he had that. I always said he was kind of a Michael Jordan of football. He always had a good smile on his face. I don't care what was going on. He always looked good in his clothes, and people came to him. We'd have those signed things day before the
Uh-huh.
season. I didn't care if they were. I'd look out there and there's kids over there. There's white folks. There's black folks. There's big folks,
Yep.
little folks. They just people drew to him,
Yep.
and he had that, and that ain't taught. He just had it, and I always Michael Jordan's one of my favorite, and he was like it just drew people, and he was just and he will tell you this because he had a little habit of being late to the field.
I
Okay,
didn't know that.
he had because there was a few what I called worms to be done, which you probably never had to do them because you didn't play for me, but I still do them today because they're hard. But I'd make him do the worms or a worm. I just hit it. It might be 30 yards, it might be 10 yards, whatever. But when I saw him, and if he was late, when I pointed to the ground, he was going down. He was going to put his hands behind his back, and he was going to crawl on his chest to me.
Oof.
Okay, and these kids out here that when they would do it, they hate it. But and I had a coach here in Georgia that told me he came to one of our football clinics. He said, "You know what the biggest thing I got from you?" I said, "What's that?" He said, "I got the worm." You made Michael Vick do the worm before practice because he was late to the field. He said, if Michael Vick can do it, so can mine. you know.
Yeah.
So he saw Mike one day have to do it, whatever. But he never get up, PO'd at me or nothing, or and Michael his first year and he said that on his I maybe said it to the kids that day at the camp, but he almost left and went home.
Oh, I know about it. Yeah.
At
I
first.
know. Yeah.
And I mean, I know a lot of you guys knew that, and I didn't know it at the time. But one day, because you remember we made him do everything as a freshman. He traveled with us because and I brought that up to Coach Beamer. I said, look, we won't have a quarterback controversy next year. Michael's going to be the guy. I said, let's get all this travel stuff out the way where he's used to it. See what the games are like, and then
Good
so
point.
everything's not the first time doing it. And Coach
Yeah.
do that, which we did. And but but he was coming off the field one day because he was, I always take everybody in. I don't care if it's Michael Vick, guys I have now, I put them on the board. Put up cover three, put up cover two. I want to know kind of where you're at, whether, whatever. And Mike, couldn't draw real good at that time. Now, he could throw the ball and do what Tommy wanted him to do and everything. And Tommy's a good football coach, but I had to teach him how to read for the most part, to really come down to throws and stuff. But I said, we got to learn coverages first,
Yeah.
And you got to know why they move. What makes them move? Why does a flat
Mm.
defender move? What makes you move? He's a curl flat defender. What's that two deep safety? Why is that two deep safety going to be able to move? At
Mm-hmm.
free safety, you ain't gonna move safeties. You can move a single safety. You're not gonna move two high safety. And he wasn't playing, but he told our kids out there that I made him travel all that year, and he said, "Man, I could be back there with my boys and hanging
Yeah.
out, playing
Yeah.
around." But he and I sat down on the field one evening after we practiced because I think I could tell he'd had about enough.
Mm-hmm.
He was frustrated. He was homesick. All these, and he and I sat there, shoot, I don't know, 45, 50 minutes after practice, he and I, and he told those kids at the camp that day, and I did tell him, I said, if you will just trust me and you're going to live through all this stuff, all this freshman stuff and traveling and
Mm-hmm.
your buddies being back here and all that. Because I said, next year, you're going to be running the show. I said, if you trust me and you do these things, I said, you will be in the NFL. I didn't know anything about Heisman's and all that, but I said, you will be in the NFL because he had the most talent I'd ever seen in my life. I mean, to throw that ball like he did, that still amazes me to this day. And I remember the first day of practice, we were going redshirt because that was the deal. And I lined, and I hadn't seen him up close. I watched all his film and all that stuff, but I wanted to kind of see how he was in. We got him loose, got with receivers. I put him on the hash, and I put receivers on the numbers. I said I want him to run an outcut on the numbers. He threw that son of a gun about nose high, and it never varied from there. And in my mind, I was like, "Holy cow!" So I turned. I said, "Do that again. Go another one." Did the same thing. He lasered that thing over there. I mean, it didn't drop. It had gone right through that wall over there. And that throw we were making, we would never make in the game. I was
Mm.
testing him to see, but honestly, it was it was fun. I mean, he'd do some. We had some conversation. I could tell you funny stories from all kinds of things going on, uh, and but he and I had some conversations on him. And I said, but I had to stay on Michael, even as a freshman, as good as he played, because he hadn't learned that discipline.
No doubt.
He had not learned that discipline. And I
Mm-hmm.
stayed on him his freshman year, and he saw how I treated the other guys,
Yep.
which I treated them all the same. But I wanted the game, and I still do. I want the game to be easier than practice. Because in the game, I'm gonna be your best friend. We might disagree,
Mm-hmm.
but you ain't gonna be upset, and I'm not gonna be upset. I on the field when I see something you do it the other way, we may argue a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's the way I wanted the game. Because for a quarterback, you get pissed off, and then next thing you go is to the middle drill or something. You're gonna knock the crap out of somebody because you're mad. Quarterback can't do that. Can't hit nobody.
Right. You can't.
Okay.
They gotta be composed.
So I put pressure on him as far as his pass sets, um, everything. And he was very trusting. I will say that. He was very trusting, but I had to stay on him all the time. I say not every play or anything like that, but I watched him all the time just to make sure we were doing the right things. And he obviously he did some he did.
No. Did you ever, were you ever like, I mentioned the miracle in Morgantown about how you told him one time in film review to kind of fake the slide and he picked up that
Yeah.
extra yardage, which led to Shane Graham
Yeah.
clutch kick, and then we kept our national championship title. Hope was alive. But did you ever coach? Because we talk about Mike, but you had some ballers, not just at Tech, but you talk about Tech. Dwayne Thomas, Sharon,
Yeah.
Antonio Freeman. Did you ever coach, or even now you're coaching at was it Central Clarke Central High School?
Yeah.
You and guys like yourself, coach, that's been coaching as long as you have. You've been in the business a long time, but did you ever, whether it was Mike or anybody, did you ever sit back and be like, after they scored or made uh, a third and whatever play on the ground or whatever, and just sit back and tell the guys in the booth or just say, damn, man, that is it just you ever enjoy it? You ever lose yourself and say, I know you got to coach and look at the next play and pick the play, but did you ever say, man, I'm gonna go home and watch that over? I mean, or did you lose yourself like that right there is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Um,
There were many times I was, I just, because I didn't talk to anybody upstairs. I mean,
okay,
Bud and
okay.
all was over there, and guys, they just knew to leave me alone because I was in my own world. And he would do some things as he did, and I'll tell you when I appreciated it. This is honest truth. I look at video. We grade video. We do. Do all that stuff. You see
Yeah.
it, but it just got to be. It was going to be something every day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it wasn't like he did it once in a while. He gonna do something on Monday, do something kind of crazy. He's gonna do
Mm-hmm.
it on Tuesday. All of a sudden, Saturday come up, he's gonna do it then. So it wasn't always a eye opening thing because I probably just knew he was gonna do things. When I watched the national championship game probably 6 years ago, the TV copy. Okay,
Oh,
not the copy that we always saw.
the game cup. Yeah, the TV
And,
cup.
and I'm watching, hearing the announcers and all that. And I looked at some of the stuff he did in that game because I mean they're talking, I mean you're there watching it. And that night I watched that whole game, and I went another level of appreciation for what he could do. Because and I don't know if you noticed, Mickey Andrews, who was a great defense coordinator forever, he and I know each other a long time. Mike, they had two knee injuries trying to
Yeah,
tackle trying to
yeah.
tackle him.
Two guys tore the ACL. Yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah,
one guy was that really good linebacker on the sideline.
yeah, yeah. No,
But
no, no. I remember it. It's talked about. You
yeah,
know, but
and
do you
Mickey
do you do you, do you think real quick because we're at the end of the show, but do you think I hate asking this question because you can't go back. It's hypothetical, and I respect the great Bobby Bowden and Mickey and Florida State, especially during that time. They were where we were trying to get to,
yeah,
but Sharon Stiff had a hell of a year that year, got hurt.
yes he
Rickey
did.
Hall, who was one of the best receivers in the conference,
Yep.
got hurt. And earlier in that year, our safety, Reggie Samuel, Mookie got hurt.
Hmm.
And then in that game, some of the DBs got hurt, where Ike Charlton had to move to safety, and then we had to bring in Ron Yell in LA. They were young bucks, two freshman cornerbacks in the national championship game. With the weapons you have with the great Andre Davis, and if those guys don't get injured, do we win that game? Because we go into the fourth quarter, we're up. I
I
mean, it's
know.
it's just we're up 29-28. And that
Yep.
year, Florida State was great, but Peter Ward, God bless him, was special too. But
Yes he was.
I named three integral parts of your offense, and then you talk about the defense playing Ron Yell and Larry Austin a
Yeah.
little bit more than Bud wanted to. Do you think it's a different outcome if everybody stays healthy? I don't want to disrespect Florida State, but I'm just
No,
curious. I never asked you that.
and here was my feeling, and this is because we had like 500 for 30, 40 yards offense against them, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I told Billy Hyatt because I mean, remember, I mean, I was trying to pull out a few things there because we were behind early. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
halftime it looked like it wasn't going to be pretty. But we come out there and I done hit the reverse with was it Nick Cullen or somebody? I did, I don't know, whatever.
Cullen Hawkins.
Cullen Hawkins, yeah. And and we were playing our butts off and we're leading, you're right. And so at the fourth quarter, I told Billy Hyde on the headset, because we had about tried everything and we were we'd gotten ourselves a lead. And I told Billy, I said, Billy, if we haven't run out of gas, we're getting ready to beat their ass. I told Billy Height that on that headset. And all of a sudden, the fourth quarter, it was like we just, we didn't play, nothing really happened for us. But we had just come out and played like crazy. And I'd shot a couple shot things plays that I had in, and they'd worked and so forth, and got some big yardages. But I never got told Billy. I said, if we haven't run out of gas, we're getting ready to beat them.
Yeah,
And
man.
we just kind of couldn't. We ran out of a little gas, I think, and just couldn't finish it
Yeah,
off.
yeah. I always wondered that, man, because and then the following year, I mean, let's not get it twisted. The following year, you guys were, I was already gone, you guys are 2 or 3. I think y'all already did 2, and Miami was 3. And then Andre Davis and Mike get injured in that big Miami showdown. Mike had a high ankle sprain. He wasn't
Yeah,
100%.
yeah,
His ankle bothered him that whole year. There
yeah.
was a couple of games, Dave Myers had to come in against
Steve
Pittsburgh and
Myers.
somebody else and finish. And then
Yeah,
Andre had a few injuries. But, those were 2 historic seasons, the 99 and 2000 season, Coach.
sure, sure.
It's always going to be what if, but that's life. That's football.
Yeah,
It doesn't take away from
absolutely.
all the great things you did, man. I mean, Coach, I got to tell you, man, I'm just honored to have you on. This has been a lot of fun. I know it's been a long time coming because I
I,
had
I've
so
been
many
wanting to,
guys.
I've been wanting to get on here.
Yeah, I know. I've been wanting to have it, man. But man, it's when I think about it, there's still so many other guys I want to get, man, because you
Yeah,
guys were such a huge part of my life. I take so many life lessons I've learned from you, like preparation. Like I said, I still, especially when Tech plays, or even just sometimes I'll just wear it. I have my Virginia Tech Lancet. I thought I had it, but
yeah,
I didn't wear it. And I have the 3 chains that I
yeah,
had when you were at Tech
yeah,
with me.
yeah.
And so many of us, man, were part of a special brotherhood that we still carry that love for each other from all the things you did. So with that being said, this is the last part of our show. I give my guests a chance to reflect and give their final thoughts before I sign off. Um, Football and sports in general has introduced you to a lot of young men like myself. Well, when I was young, but um, so many of us were impacted by you and Beamer and all the things you taught us on and off the field. You mentioned how you always checked on Mike and you knew what he was going through when you found out and you were there for him. But it was just Mike. It was a lot of us, man,
Sure,
right?
sure.
Um, you know, what has this game and coaching provided for you? And what do you want to tell people when I run this about your legacy and what the game has given you? And what have you given back that makes you feel proud as a coach, as a father? Because I know it's bigger than football. So when
Sure.
you look at your life lessons, what you learn from coaching, what you learn from coaching with all those guys at Tech and other schools in South Carolina and Clemson, what have you learned about yourself? What has the game taught you? And what would you tell other younger coaches coming up? Because it's a different game now, NIL and things like
Sure,
that. But
sure.
just some final thoughts on your legacy
Well,
and what you appreciate.
for me, this has been such a great career choice for me. Um, Maybe I could have sold condominiums or something like that. I don't know, but you know, the interact. When I look around, you can't really see in my office here, but I got pictures of you go to a lawyer's office or doctors, they got their degrees and all up there. I got I got pictures that have been signed by guys that say I love you.
Yes.
And man, I loved a lot of guys in my career. And but that's what when you look, this is my office here at home, and I've got my dad a picture of my dad's picture over there too because of his inspiration. But I was able to be around a lot of great young people. I
Mhm.
think that I was able to relate to them. I think that I was able to help some of them, maybe a lot of them, because I was in it, been in it so long, and that's why I like doing what I do now. Um, it's just a kid. I don't. They try to give me extra money over here to substitute teach and all. I ain't doing that. I didn't like school the first time I went, so I don't. I don't want to be back over there. I just go over there for football. So I learned that I can give myself to other people is probably as much as anything.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, it's a lot of people. It's hard to do, I think, and it's hard a lot of times for young people to give themselves to you, being an older
Mm-hmm.
person.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of gets back to, you listen to the message, not the tone, you know. Um, but it's been awesome for me to watch guys grow up, mature, uh, and become not just better players, but which is a great part of it, but to watch them come up, just be a better person.
Sure. Yeah.
To see
Yeah.
them see them graduate, first of all,
Yeah.
you know,
Absolutely.
um, and because those are the promises I made to a lot of kids that I recruited, and I recruited a lot of kids to Tech, and that football is going to take care of us. I didn't ever talk a lot of football. Me and them,
Mm-hmm.
we might do it at school, but I said, I want to bring back to you in 4 or 5 years a young man that's a better young man than he is today. That was
Mm-hmm.
my goal, and I saw that happen a lot. Um,
Yeah.
I was lucky to do what I did, and that's um, I'm very grateful that I had these opportunities to be around people like yourself and see because it wasn't all about my little group all the time. I love fooling with the linemen.
Yeah.
I'd get with I just and I still do. I still do. I just love doing that. So you know, I found a love outside of my family to be the family that I'm with, coaching and with, and that's why that link was always important to me because no matter what happened, that group that had them, if they kept them, they were always going to be linked together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think, and yeah, I never felt like I went to work a day because I enjoyed what I did, and it was hard sometimes. You know,
Yeah.
it was hard. It was long hours and all them kind of things, and but man, I wouldn't change a thing. And seeing guys like yourself being successful, doing what you do, and seeing it on Facebook and seeing just guys do well, it just makes you feel good inside. I got a box over here with a bunch of rings and bowl watches and all that kind of stuff. But but that's that'll be here when I'm gone. You know,
True. True.
it's just seeing. I don't know if Brad will want to have it or not, but it's going. My wife ain't gonna have it. But it's just been such a great profession, man. And I think it's getting harder because I think we develop players at that time. I think that's what I fuss about a little bit. The way it is now is schools aren't developing players anymore. They're leaving. They can't play.
No.
They leave. Um,
Mm-mm.
and they could care less about being good where they are.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know if I could do that again.
Yeah.
If,
Yeah.
if I did, my heart would be broken a bunch because I always prided myself on trying to be close to players and kind of knowing the pulse and and then sometimes like I said, it always wasn't hugs and kisses, but we all had each other's back. And
Absolutely.
I don't think a doctor and lawyer and the president of the United States and they don't get that. They can't get that in what they did. So when I
Yeah.
look around at what I miss, I look at these pictures and things hanging on the wall, and one picture reminds me of five other guys that aren't on the wall.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
and it's been so much fun tonight rehashing this stuff with you. I'm telling you what,
Absolutely.
it's been just absolutely awesome. And I appreciate you so much having me on here. And I hope you'll have me again sometime.
Hey, I'm
Um,
trying to. You about to spoil a little secret I'm working on, man. We're trying to get anyway. I'm not even going to say it. I don't want to jinx it because
well,
you one step ahead of me.
I want you to get me on there with Mike because I got a couple stories now.
Oh well, yeah. That's something we definitely could do this fall if me and Mike do the next another Vic 757 show. But
Yeah,
Coach, yeah, we definitely would love to have you on because I thought about doing that with you and Steiny and a few other guys,
yeah,
man. But I speak on behalf of so many Virginia Tech football players when I say thank you for tonight. I can't wait for everybody to see this when this runs. More importantly, thank you for being part of history. Um, the hard part, the challenging part, the fun part. It was impactful. I meant every word I said when I said you were an integral part in creating that iconic legacy at Virginia Tech on the offensive side because we had an identity. We were
Yeah,
tough. We were
tough,
tough,
man.
tough, tough, and we had fun being physical, but we also grew together. We loved together, and
Sure.
we won and we lost together. But it was a brotherhood that lasts this day, man. So I thank you for jumping on behalf of the Victory Life Legacy Movement. We appreciate you. You are definitely leaving a very good legacy. Those kids down there that you're coaching right now, lucky to have you. I say that with all my heart. And to everybody that supports the Victory Life Movement, remember, no matter where you go, no matter what you do, make sure you have a positive impact and you leave a great legacy. I'm Dwight Vick, owner and founder of Victory Life. Thank you, Coach Rickey Bustle. We appreciate you. Make sure you support him in youth sports as well as high school and collegiate academics and sports. Also, make sure you subscribe to this network so you can keep seeing more great interviews like this one with Coach Rickey Bustle. Thank you, Coach.
I love you
Appreciate
guys,
you.
man. I love you
We love
guys.
you
I
too.
promise
We
you.
appreciate you.
Okay. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. All right.